There's one thing in your business right now holding you back from $500,000, and you're almost certainly not looking at it. You're probably looking at your ads or your offer or your team or your content. You're probably trying to fix all three at once. And that's exactly why nothing's moving. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to find the single constraint that's actually in the way. And once you see it, you'll understand why everything you've been optimizing was the wrong thing. Most founders I work with aren't lazy and they aren't stupid. They're doing a lot. And that's the problem. They're improving their landing page while the real issue is the sales team can't handle the leads they already have. They're rewriting ad copy while the bottleneck is a fulfillment process that creates churn. They're hiring another person while the constraint is that nobody has a clear outcome to own. A member of the mastermind came to me after spending 6 months improving their advertising, new creatives, new angles, new targeting. They were obsessed with the front end, and the numbers were getting better. Click-through rates were up, cost per lead was down, but revenue hadn't moved because the real constraint was sales capacity. They could generate leads, they couldn't convert them fast enough. Leads were sitting in a pipeline for days before anyone touched them. By the time someone followed up, the prospect had gone cold and found someone else. When they stopped optimizing ads and fixed the sales constraint instead, growth unlocked in weeks, not months, weeks. Here's what most founders say when they're stuck. I need more leads. I need better marketing. I need to hire someone. These are surface level diagnoses. They sound logical, they feel productive, and they're almost always wrong. Not because leads don't matter, not because marketing's irrelevant, but because those are symptoms. They're what you see on the surface when something deeper is broken. The surface problem is always about more traffic, more content, more people, more effort. And the hidden problem is almost always about flow. Something in your business isn't moving. And instead of finding it, you're throwing more resources at everything around it. Here's the part most founders don't want to hear. It's not a resource problem, it's an identification problem. You haven't identified where the constraint actually lives. Think of your business like water flowing through a pipe. There's one section of that pipe that's narrower than the rest. That narrow section determines how fast everything moves. It doesn't matter how much water you pour in at the top, it doesn't matter how wide the other sections are, the narrow section controls flow. And here's what makes this dangerous. The narrow section is almost never where you think it is. You feel the pressure at the front of the business because that's where you interact the most. But the constraint is usually sitting quietly in the middle, in a handoff, in a process, in a role nobody owns clearly. You can't fix what you haven't found, and you can't find it if you're trying to fix everything at once. So here's how you find it. The first thing you do is map it, not the version in your head, the version that actually happens. Write down every step a customer goes through from first contact to fully delivered result, including the hands-off, including the waiting, including the parts you don't like to think about. Most founders have never done this. They have a rough idea, they don't have the map. Once you have the map, you measure. How long does a lead sit before someone contacts them? How long before the first call and the proposal? How long between payment and first delivery? You're not looking for where things break, you're looking for where things slow down. And when you measure, something becomes obvious. There's one stage that's significantly slower than the rest. One place where work piles up, one place where things just wait. It might be a person, it might be a process, it might be a missing role, but it's specific and it's singular. That's your constraint. And here's the part that changes everything. You fix only that, nothing else. This is where most founders fail, because the moment they see the constraint, they also see 12 other things they want to fix. Ignore them, all of them. Every improvement you make anywhere else in the system while the constraint remains is wasted effort. The pipe's still narrow. It doesn't matter how much water you add. Once you fix it, a new one appears. It always does. The business moves forward and the next narrow point surfaces, and you do it again. Find the constraint, fix it, find the next one. Growth, it's not a mystery. It's a sequence of constraints identified and removed. Here's the myth. Growth comes from doing more. More channels, more hires, more campaigns, more hours. Here's the truth. Growth comes from doing less. Specifically, it comes from doing the one thing that matters most and ignoring everything else until that one thing is resolved. The founders who scale aren't the ones who work harder. They're the ones who identify the constraint faster and have the discipline to stay focused on it. It's not a function of effort, it's a function of accuracy. How quickly can you find the real bottleneck? How decisively can you fix it? That's the game. Here's the uncomfortable part. Fixing the constraint requires you to stop being the person who does everything and start being the person who diagnoses. Those are two very different roles. The person who does everything feels productive. They're moving, they're busy, they can point to activity at the end of the day and say they worked hard. The person who diagnoses often feels like they're doing nothing. They're sitting with a map, they're looking at numbers, they're asking uncomfortable questions about where things are actually slowing down. But the person who diagnoses is the one who creates growth. The person who does everything is the one who maintains stagnation with more effort. You're not being paid to work hard. You're being paid to find the thing that's in the way and remove it. A member of the mastermind told me something after they went through this process. They said the hardest part wasn't finding their constraint, it was stopping themselves from fixing 5 other things at the same time. Because fixing everything feels responsible. Fixing one thing feels risky, but fixing one thing is how the pipe opens. And once it opens, everything behind it starts flowing. Here's what happens when you fix the wrong thing. You spend money, you spend time, you spend energy, and the business stays in the same place because the constraint is still there. Everything you added just piles up behind it. Here's what happens when you fix the right thing. Every investment you've already made starts producing. The ads you ran start converting because the sales process can now handle volume. The team you hired starts performing because the handoff they were stuck on is now clear. The content you created starts driving revenue because the backend can finally deliver. Fixing the constraint doesn't just create growth. It activates everything you've already built. That's the multiplication principle. You don't need to add more to the system. You need to remove the one thing that's preventing the system from working. There's one thing in your business right now holding back $500,000. You won't find it by working harder. You won't find it by optimizing everything. And you won't find it by hiring another person or hoping. You'll find it by mapping the flow, measuring the speed, and looking for the one point where everything slows down.